logistical issue, as she said. I have only 1 hour, and then most likely because the room will be occupied, there will be a class here. And then also, I don't have power. We don't have power here at this moment. So it won't be possible for me to extend beyond 1 hour. So let's talk now about innovative business models and contractual arrangements to allocate risks, support operations, and maintain efficiency. So we are coming back again to the same things. When you look at this chapter, we are coming back to this innovative method that have been used in the water sector after 1990. Because before 1990, we were used to the 3 T's: tax, tariffs, and transfer. These are the only ways of financing water that have been used. What was the reason? Actually, the agenda was political. Politicians want popularity, and they don't want water cost to be excessive. Otherwise, there'll be some wrangle or people will demonstrate. So that's why they set 3 T's for them to finance water, and most likely the price was subsidized. They, in some cases, they use all type concessions. I mean, concessions of those years, whereby they gave the infrastructure, they built infrastructure, and then they gave it to the private sector for them to use. But the price of the cubic meter was subsidized. It was less, it was less than the acceptable cost or the average cost of water. So this undermined profitability of water companies. So that's why you see that most of the companies, they don't make profit up to now. Then in I'm already talking about how finance sources evolved in the water sector, point 4.2. So in the 1990s now, there was a need for SMEs, I mean small and medium-sized businesses or enterprises to get involved. So why getting involved in this? The agenda was business agenda, to get loans and be able to reimburse the loan. That was the agenda of businesses. So in that case, the government has to use these concessions ways, concessional contract with them, so they can use the infrastructure built by the government, and then they may get funding from elsewhere for them to operate this infrastructure. So this is what happened, but most likely most of the infrastructure was small scale infrastructure that they built. So this led to privatization based on risk mitigation, because they were using loans for them to make, I mean, to make those small scale infrastructure and to operate their business. So they were obliged to be able to reimburse. So they manage these facilities with a lot of expertise, and they gain credit worthiness because it was really under scrutiny by lenders, and this helped them to have some return on investment. But still, the price had to be subsidized for political agenda. In 1997, with the Millennium Development Goals, so there was a push towards climate mitigation, and some funds were availed for that. So some funds were availed for climate adaptation and mitigation. So the GEF, the General Environment Facility, provided funds for those who wanted to, those who were working in the environment sector, including water, for them to upgrade the technology. I mean, there was a facility for upgrading technology in order to increase efficiency and then to reduce the cost. So this is what happened. And later on, we talk about ecological transition, which also will lead to new forms of funding under the climate funds or environmental sustainability funds. So since then, most likely the government and businesses and these international financial institutions are working together towards the sustainability of water sector. So in 2010, what happened is that they were pushing for private-public partnerships to be really contractual, and this is what happened. And we saw that there were new schemes that were born, like the BOTs, the BOL, BOS, BOOT, and so forth. So these new types of concessions would enable businesses to work together with governments in order to achieve their goals, business goals, popularity goals, political goals, but using large-scale infrastructure. So here we're talking about large-scale infrastructure. It seems as if we are back in 1970s, where most of World Bank funding was about large-scale infrastructure. So we are again back here, but this time we will use a public-private partnership in order to implement this kind of financing. So these are new facilities that are born, and they are likely to help the government to get large-scale infrastructure, but which are being operated by private companies. So both popularity and efficiency agenda are being pursued here, and then the government has to contract out a private company for them to do that. And since then, there are new emerging mixed finances, and I want us actually to focus on that, on these new emerging finances, because we talked about everything I'm talking about here. We talked about that from page 51 up to 53. These are things that we talked about yesterday. Then I want now us to focus on page 53, where we're talking about emerging mixed finances. So let's go to page 53. I'm sorry, but there are many good things that you can read yourself in these pages. But let me focus on. Is it? Yeah, 52. Sorry, 52. 4. In your paper it is written 4.5, but in mine 4.3. Emerging mixed financial products for raising capital and debt. I hope that we are on the same page. Yeah, of course. Now let's talk about this. Now we have seen that we have moved from traditional types of concession to the new types of concessions that enable the government to build large-scale infrastructure. Now there are new facilities that helps governments and private companies to design and submit proposals for grants. So here, facilities have proved to be very useful tool for strengthening the governance and institutional frameworks of the water sector. So if you are very keen, I think even in South Africa, there have been some reforms that have been going on from 1990, 97 up to these days in many countries because of this kind of facilities. So donors are pushing on a change. What is the change in the management of water and sanitation? First of all, you have to divide water resources from water services. You cannot put them together because water resources pursue water security. It is for a political goal, notably achieving equity, social equity, achieving environmental resilience and sustainability. But when it comes to services, the goal is a business goal, profitability. So that's why they want to separate these two things. Governments have to take care of water resources, and private companies have to take care of services. So, and then sanitation is under water services. So these facilities have been useful actually, and then there have been some changes. And I've seen myself and done many studies in Kenya showing that the water sector reform has improved the sector finance, and it has also improved the institutional framework and the governance of that sector. Let's talk about guarantees and insurance products. As I said, what the managers can recourse to the principle of subsidiarity or the principle of I say subsidiarity or substitution. I think there are two principles there. So one of them enables water sector to borrow from other stakeholders who have money. That is subsidiarity. But the solidarity principle enable water managers to go to insurance companies and insure their assets, which will guarantee them from also borrowing money from financiers and donors. So these are the type of new kind of arrangement that are coming in the water sector, because they were only in the private sector for long, but nowadays they're coming in the water sector, and they become sometimes a prerequisite for you to get financing from banks, development banks, and business banks. 3, pooled financing and transfers of repayment capacity. So pooled financing constitutes the 6 types of financing innovations. They are well known for assisting small operators to access finances, which will not otherwise be available to them. So here we are talking about small finances, small businesses that are coming together and they can get funding. So it helps them to strengthen the balance sheet, which generally are undercapitalized, and they get as a project they get one fund for the whole project that they can implement. So they are grouped financing vehicles enabling a large number of small borrowers with small projects to access finance for combined use, and they are done to the portfolio. I mean the payment, which is the transfer of money and capacity, sometimes is done on the portfolio rather than to individual projects. Hallmark is the creation of a reserve fund to mitigate the risk and cash flow problems. Now, commercial financing, you know it very well because it is used for long in the private sector. You can go to a bank and then get money. This is the money you get for in the short run, and you have to reimburse with an interest rate. So this is what has been also happening for some time in the water sector. I said since the 1990s when SMEs got involved into the water sector. So commercial financing becomes one of the opportunity they have to get finances. It increases credit worthiness. I mean the ability to reimburse a loan, and then it's helped them also to get credit from the financiers for them to get loans. They're innovative because, as I said, they were only used in the private sector. And the private sector, they were used to go into commercial banks, borrowing for money after giving collaterals. But water sector, we're not used to that. Now that we are getting in, we are getting involved in the sector of the private sector. I mean the financing sector of the private sector. So it becomes like a new financing mechanism. So this commercial borrowing has classes of covenants. I mean here that you are tied to the funder. He will tell you you can change your conduct for quite a period of time. You can change. You have to maintain your performance to this level. So there is this principle of seniority that is there, because you can go and get money from 1, 2, 3, but the first one has always to tell you pay attention to your conduct. We agreed on this and that. So these are the classes of covenants that comes in and they limit your ability to contract debt sometime elsewhere. And the commercial financing covenants have positive and negative effects, as I said. They set minimum standard for borrower future conduct and performance. So on one side, they can help you to increase your performance, but on the other side, they limit your conduct. So you have to stick to the rules. Consequently, borrowers with no credit record are overburdened with heavy restrictions, and sometimes they are discouraged to seek loans from commercial banks. Now let's talk about capital and debt raising from the stock exchange market. This is quite new because, as I said yesterday, most of what the companies do not make profit, and the reason is that the government intervened to subsidize the price, so they don't make profit, and it is difficult for them to go to the stock exchange market, issue a share, I mean any stock, a share or a bond, and then get money financing. But recently, the move has been to go to the stock exchange market and get money. For your information, the financial market at that level, that international level, has two compartments. The first one is the primary market, where the stocks, the notes are issued. You are not exchanging the stocks there. You are not bargaining there. But it is the issuance of shares and bonds. Then once they are issued, they go to the second compartment, which is the exchange market, the stock exchange market, where they can be now negotiated using a broker. A broker will be there to link those who are in need of finance and those who have finance. So that's how he'll be in between them and help them to get money. I want you to note here that we are not talking about short financing, because short financing is commercial, is for commercial banks, it is for cooperatives, it is for saving schemes and microfinance institutions. We are talking here about long-term stock. I mean, financing your capital or financing your long-term debt. If you want probably to reimburse a debt, a long-term debt, you can go to the stock exchange market to get financing. That is the aim of the stock exchange market. Its aim is to finance capital, to build investments, but it is not there for short-term financing. It is there for long-term, sometimes medium-term financing. Do we have examples of this exchange in the stock exchange market? Yes, we have some examples. For instance, most of government issue what they call IPOs, initial public offers. They do this by forming alliances, and sometimes when it comes to private companies, the corporate also, they also do it by forming alliances and reorganization, fusion, and acquisition. But government also they issue IPOs, initial public offer, to be tendered in the stock exchange market. So this IPO help you to raise money in two forms. One, equity as shares and your own capital, owner's capital, and also as debt. Debt is bond, and generally it is bond, the venture bond and other bonds. So in such a case, payment service provider would contract equity contributions for risk premium to build expected terms. So you see a relationship here between the one funding and the one borrowing will be a bidder, a broker. And in between, there will be risk premium companies. I mean here, your insurance companies that will be there to ensure that there is no risk for reimbursement. What is happening that in Africa we have some stock exchange markets. I know Accra, I know Johannesburg. There is also one in Windhoek, Namibia. So you have them. But in general, apart from the one in Johannesburg, our African stock exchange markets are characterized by the volatility of the indices and also by illiquidity. They don't have money. So that's why most likely the turnover are very low, very weak. So what's happening is that most of African, they won't go to trade their assets in the exchange stock market in Africa. They would likely go elsewhere. I say except for Johannesburg exchange stock market. All the other are just micro markets, and the capitalization is very small. They don't go beyond 1% of the global capitalization. Then majority of operations on the capitalization are being done by private arrangement through privatization. That is what is being done in Africa. So due to illiquidity of these markets, very few companies dare transacting shares, and more unlikely green bonds and other debt stocks in the exchange markets in our continent. So we need to strengthen this. We need to strengthen the liquidity of our stock exchange market. We need to strengthen the operations so they can work 24 hours out of 24 hours. What is interesting is that generally water companies don't dare go into exchange market, but the Namibia water does it. NAM water does it. NAM water does it because it has improved its cost management. NAM water passes its cost fully to its customers. It's just working like any private company, and the consumers are the one bearing the cost. This has helped NAM water to go to the Namibia stock market and raise some funds. As per 2015, interest paid on 5 years notes issued on the same year was 9.05%. And the NAM water was it was rated BBB, 3 Bs by Fitch agency, which means that it's very high ranked among the African water companies. So to maintain its stand in the stock market, NAM water has consolidated its tariffs. You have a tariff for the low consumers. You have one for higher consumers, and then you can see that a cubic meter is $0.92 for low consumers, and then 1.4 for higher consumers. But still, all of them have to pay a fixed monthly charge of $5. So this helps NAM water to recover its costs from those consuming. The company has also a backwater scheme, which helps it to charge generally mining companies across the country for supplying water to them, and then for them using water that is bulk water. Then the NAM water effectively subsidized localities with high supply costs, with supplies from localities with lower supply costs. So this is an example of one of the companies in the water sector that is being efficient, at the same time effective in raising funds from the stock exchange market. Now I want to go to the green bond issuance. Let me make sure that we are on the same page. Are we on the same page? Hello?
Yes, Prof. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So now let's continue with the green bond issuance. I think this is something new. I think 2007, that the US market for the first time issued a green bond. But this green bond, if you look at from the Western perspective, they say it is a good thing because, first of all, it helps companies to achieve the social corporate responsibility on environment. So we can see that it is good for the Western countries that the mechanism is fair. It helps borrowers, which are companies, to achieve the social responsibility when it's come to environmental sustainability. And then at the same time, on the other side, it's helped them also to increase their credit worthiness, because once you get a green bond, it will help you to improve your balance sheet, and then you will increase your turnover and so forth. I may not say that this is always true, because in our department we have never experienced that. I have only one case that I'll give at the end of this class. But I can say that there are few studies in the US generally that are showing that yes, uh, green bonds can finance a project sustainably. In some cases, sometimes they may not, and in others. But in general, green investors and green bond issuers orient the businesses towards sustainable activities to finance their path to ecological transition through a new debt instrument. This has been proved by few studies, as I said, in the US market. And the academic literature on green bond, unfortunately, is not fluent. Very few evidences have been proposed. But the market interprets a green bond as a debt issuance on environment, and it is favorable for corporate financing. Almost all the published articles focus on the significance of abnormal returns from green bonds versus traditional bonds, which are not green. And with regard to the firm characteristics, we note that the profitability, growth opportunities, asset tangibility, large managerial ownership are also taken care when it comes to green bonds. So, which means that you borrow money for you to achieve environmental sustainability goals, but at the same time, you have to take care of profitability, to business growth, to asset tangibility, which are most likely the indicators of a business performance. So when it comes to Africans, what do they think about these green bonds? So point 457, green bonds versus green climate funds. You can note the last sentence on this page, page 56. Since then, green bonds have been generally recognized in the West as a serious and an interesting financing tool to finance environmental friendly purposes and address the sparkling issue of climate change. However, African countries, like many developing countries, are still fighting increasing poverty levels with an ever-growing population. They do not recognize green bonds as a fair mechanism, since they are the world's poorest, bearing the largest burden of climate change. Yet, their contribution to the global warming remains insignificant. So we can see that for Africans, it is not fair, because they are not the one behind the climate change issue. These are industrial countries. But they are asking them to borrow money for them to fix climate risks, which is not fair. That's why in recent COPs, Africans have been pushing towards financing, aids or grants for damage. Developed countries have to accept that they damage the international environment, and that they have to pay money for damages to communities that are suffering from climate change. And this has been a push for long. And recently, in Sharm el-Sheikh, in Egypt, it has been approved that, yes, they will give some funds to Africans and developing countries that are suffering from climate change, especially those small islands in the ocean, the Pacific and the Indian Oceans, that are suffering from climate change. They need to be funded for damages caused by climate change, which is a result of industrialization. But as alternative, African push for a mix of green climate funds, GCF. This comprise compensation like green water credits, payment for environmental services, clean development mechanisms, and funds for reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, which is known as REDD+. So these ensure transaction for the protection of poor populations against climate impacts and vulnerable environment without borrowing from the market. These funds are generally pooled under the General Environment Facility. So that is the end of chapter 4. I don't know if there are some issues raised there. Hello?
Not from my side, Prof. Not from my side, but I'll allow the other colleagues to come in if they need further clarification on the same. Colleagues, the platform is yours. Any questions for Professor Luwesi? I also get the impression that, Prof, your class is not very strong on water financing. Was the absence of questions is a reflection of two things, that they really get it, or probably is not an area of specialization for most of them. So it's quite an introduction, and they have to go back and engage in the subject as they continue with their PhD work. But I think it has been quite insightful in that regard, especially for those that are looking into financing as a component of their PhD scope.
I don't think that is the case, Rennie, because from my experience, me, I did applied science. So I'm most likely like an engineer. But I've seen many of my engineering colleagues who are really engineers working on issues like finance. So you can't just go like that, develop a technology without thinking about finance. I think the problem is that they did not have the pamphlet before for them to read. So this course can be like an introduction for them, and they have to take time to read the pamphlet, because sometimes they'll be asked questions about the technology you develop. How much will it cost? Is it cost effective or not? And where will you get money? So these are small questions, and you have to find answers. So this is an introduction to such kind of issues. So I think I'm introducing, but they have to go and find money. Sorry, to find time for them to read the notes. So if that is the case,
this class was an introduction, so it becomes a trigger for them. You know, the appetite has been in. The appetite is now there for them to take a deep dive on the subject matter. It is quite relevant, and I think this lecture has actually induced the appetite. I quite agree with you on that. I don't see any hands.
Is there any? I don't think so.
No, I don't see any. I don't see any.
Let me go to chapter 5.
Okay. But whilst you're going to chapter 5, isn't it an issue also of capacity to come up with bankable projects? Because I've seen, in as much as we've got financing instruments such as the Global Environmental Facility, GEF, it takes a certain skill to be able to actually put together a comprehensive package that can actually be funded. And at times the skills are not necessarily there within the countries. And a few times we've actually seen countries, member states receiving support, technical support to help them prepare such projects. So I feel at times, I don't know to what extent can we start strengthening the capacity of our member states to be able to come up with bankable projects in order for us to be able to attract some of this or to take advantage of some of these financing instruments, similar to Green Climate Fund, similar to the Adaptation Fund. These are climate funds that are there, but putting together those submissions, it's quite a task. It's almost a year of work to comprehensively put together a bankable GEF or Green Climate Fund proposal with all the mandatory annexures that are required. Just something to put out there. I don't know if you agree.
Thank you very much. That's actually a very good input, because chapter 5 talks about some of these challenges. And then, as I said, of course, they are giving some facility today for you to hire an expert to do that. And I remember in 2018, 2019, yeah, 2018, 2019, I was hired by the SADC Water Fund for me to give this kind of courses on how to build a bankable proposal for the water sector. Yes, I worked with Yap and Adzen, the Dutch guy on that issue. So it means that yes, we need some strengthening. If you're asking for much money, I mean a very heavy portfolio, you need to have a lot of capacity for you to do that. That's why I said when you go to the stock exchange market, you won't do it yourself. You need brokers. These are specialized people who are just trying to find who has finance, who is in need of finance, and put you together. They are the people who will put together the document and so forth. The same thing also for those climate funds. So if you want to get them, you need to develop a very comprehensive proposal, and there you need some capacity from outside for you to build this kind of proposals. Yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, I didn't give any example of this kind of funds here in this book, in this paper. I used cases that myself I heard and I documented in Kenya and in Ghana. In Ghana, actually, I'm just using business models. And then I'm going to add one case in South Africa, a case of solar energy from the Tas Riviere project. So I'll be a bit fast here also. First, we are on page 61. First of all, there are lessons we can learn from these examples, all examples that we have in this chapter 5. The first one is that we need a culture of societal marketing. The government need to use marketing that private companies are using in its communications in order to increase revenue collection and lead people to abide to polluter pays principles and user pays principles. Companies used to use marketing culture for them to raise a lot of funds, to raise money, to mobilize resources from where they are, and this has been actually the case of Embu Water and Sanitation Company in Kenya. From page 63 to page 66, you'll see the case of Embu. The second lesson that I'm learning here is that you don't need to move there. You just, I'm just introducing. The second lesson we have to learn is that you need leadership in management and corporate marketing and communication for you to help your company to seize opportunities and attract funds. The case of Muasco, Moranga Water and Sanitation Company is also another case, which is showing to us that these technicalities are very important for you to raise funds, mobilize funds. The third lesson is that networking and building partnerships is very important for you to raise money from commercial banks and the other funding schemes like NGOs, international organization, and so forth. This helps you to build your credit worthiness, of course. Because if you go, they will ask you, have you ever got a loan somewhere or funding from somewhere? If you have never got, so they won't give you. It will be difficult for them to give you. If they give you, you'll be under scrutiny. So this means that if you build early networks and partnerships, you are going to increase your credit worthiness and get money. This is the case of still Embu, which was a very small company. I saw it when it's in 2007, 2005, but it has grown to a big company today. And also the case of Nyeri, which was almost a medium company, but it has become a big company in Kenya because of building a very strong partnership with the German Development Bank, KfW. You can see that case from page 66 to page 69. Another lesson I'm learning here is that technical innovations for small-scale businesses in the water sector can also increase creditworthiness. And the case I'm taking here is the case of the mobile phone Safaricom in Kenya, which has come together with a Danish water pump company called the Grundfos. So both of them, they've built a Grundfos M-Pesa integrated technology for them to supply water to the rural areas, but through payment by M-Pesa. This case is on page 66 to page 72. Another lesson is the one from the business model built in Ghana. These business models are being built for small-scale farmers. And these financial innovations has helped them to attract funds from microfinance, from cooperatives, from commercial banks, even from donors and the government. It also helped the government to update or to adjust its policies for the sake of social welfare. So the example that are given here are the example of models known as RPCI, RDCI, and NFTI financing models that have been built by my friend, Dr. Akumudu. So you found these examples on page 72 up to 77. The last case that is not in your pamphlet is the one of the green bonds that have been issued in South Africa, and recently on solar power energy, and it has been successful, like a new case of green bonds being raised in this area. So you don't have it, but I sent a copy of it to Ronelle. I think Ronelle has it on her mail. If you can, at the end of this paper, project it for you. Now, let me just summarize each case. Let me start by Muranga. Muranga is a very small county that is near Nairobi. And then since the water sector reform in Kenya in 2002, each county has to have its own water company. And then the Muranga also developed this kind of company. It is known as Mwasco. But the problem of rural area is that you have a company, but you don't have manpower. You don't have skills. So people who are there are just high school, people who have a high school leaving certificate, or sometimes primary school. So you don't have university, you don't have engineers, you don't have this kind of people working there. And this is a challenge because the board of directors that is made of people who have low skills will lose sight. It won't have what we call the foresight leadership for it to manage a business in the long run. And that is what was happening in Rwanda until they appointed in 2013 a new manager who was a young engineer. And the young engineer came and introduced ICT in the company. He put ICT almost everywhere. And then M-Pesa in the payment and so forth. And he started now writing proposals. What happened is that he was able to get money from different funders. And this helped him now to change the type of personnel he has. So most of them, he put them, he hired actually new staff. And among these guys, there were the people who had all the diplomas, like in primary, bachelor degrees and the master degrees, and lower professional credentials were most likely phased out. So this helped the company to get more funding. I put some figures here for you. The fund they got, for instance, I'm seeing here a project of 17.7 million Kenya shillings in 2015, and then the other one, 88.4 million Kenya shillings in 2012. These are you have to divide by 100 for you to get the money in dollars. Divide by 100 and probably divide by 1,000 for you to get by 10. Sorry, for you to get in rands. the money in rand. So this is what helped the company now to move from a small, very small company to a medium company. So recently they got money from the African Development Bank, close to 92, no, it's not 92 million, but it is $920,000. So that's what they got from the African Development Bank. And also something like $270,000 from the trust fund, the water trust fund, which was an institution built in Kenya to supply water for poor settlements. So this has shown that leadership is very important. You need people who are very skilled, who are high learned, for them to manage a business for the future. So the impact is that today, Moranga portfolio has been diversified, and then the utility is expanding its water network to other towns like Maragua, Kiangage, Nikwe, and so forth. So they have now an estimated investment of 1 billion Kenya shillings divided by 100. So you have $10 million, which is a new program for them to expand the network. So this is quite well. And then they are trying to build different public-private partnerships for them to be able to fund other areas of Maraga town. Embu is a very exciting case because, as I said, in 2005, if you saw Embu, you will not believe that this is the company that came today, the Ewasco. It was almost neglected. The infrastructure was not there. But in 2005, they appointed a new manager who was an engineer. What's his name again? I forgot his name, but we'll see it in the text. So he was appointed as the new manager, the new CEO. And he found a company without money, without infrastructure. What did he do? He went to a supplier, a pipe supplier, a guy who has a shop that was selling pipes. Negotiated with the guy and asked the guy if he can give him pipes. He put a network of pipes. Then immediately he will collect money. He'll be refunding. And the guy agreed. Yeah, he accepted, and he gave him those pipes. Then he started the work. In the meantime, he went to see the German Development Bank and asked them if they can fund his business. So they asked him if he has got money from somebody else. He said no, never. Then they said no, go first of all, get money from somebody else, then you can come back to us. So he went to the Japanese. And the JICA then asked them if they can help him because there's a problem. The Embu area doesn't have money, doesn't have a water network. Yet there are businesses there. There are hotels, there are irrigation schemes, so they need water. The Japanese said, okay, we are coming to see what is happening there. So the guy is called Engineer Karugendo. And the Japanese came, they look at what was happening. They asked him, do you have a funding from somebody else? He said, no. Did you apply to somebody else? They said, yes. To GTZ? He said, no. You had to stop that partnership with GTZ. We are going to fund you, fully fund you. And then they said to fund Ewasco. So they funded Ewasco, and Ewasco was able now to extend its network of pipes. So as you can see from the table on page, which page is this? Page 65. We are trying to show you the situation in 2005 when they started. They had only 21 staff. 19 staff. They have 2 computers, but in 2011, after the funding by JICA, they have 81 members of staff, 37 computers, 4 vehicles, 19 motorcycles, and 3 functional computer servers. So you see how it evolved. In 2005, the company was only able to supply 2,000 cubic meters per day. But in 2011, they were able to supply 13,000 cubic meters. The area supplied in 2005, it was 80 square kilometers. But in 2011, it was extended to 900, 10 times the area that they were supplying. 54,000 people were supplied in 2005, but we have now 150,000 people supplied in 2011. So you see how the company emerged and became one of the interesting companies. So after this grant that changed the balance sheet of Iwasco, Engineer Karugando went to see the Americans, and then he negotiated with them to fund a sanitation project, so known as SUWASO. So US had funded that project, $945,000 and this money helped them to get also some funding from the commercial banks, and it helped them to develop the network. And today it is one of the best rated companies in Kenya. So there are many others funded that came now. The German Development Bank came back to fund them again, and today they are one of the most likely performing company in Kenya. So another case is the one of Nyeri. As I said, Nyeri was a middle-sized company in the standard of Kenya in 2000, even 1995. So, but they wanted to expand their business and went to find the German Development Bank, KfW. And they submitted a proposal that was in 1995, if I'm not wrong. 1995. The proposal was filed, and discussion were done. Pre-feasibility studies were done. Feasibility studies were done. But this proposal was only funded after 10 years, in October 2005. So you can see the time between when they filed the proposal and once it was approved, it was too much, 10 years. But at the end, they got 20 million Dutch marks. I don't know the equivalence of that in dollars. And this helped them to expand their business. So today, Niewasco, which is Nyeri company, is able to develop its own water treatment plants. It has developed a system of payment, prepayment, and payment by M-Pesa and so forth. And it is one of the companies that is getting loans from banks and then from other development organizations and international financial organizations. So what we learned from Niewasco is that sustained cooperation with the government is also successful, because the loan from KfW was guaranteed by the Treasury of Kenya. The second thing is that sustainable financing of the firm shall be based on in-depth knowledge of the company present needs. And this shall be balanced with the future needs. The projects shall go beyond recurrent financial needs of the company to include infrastructure development and elements addressing sustainability. The situation analysis, technical studies, pre-feasibility and feasibility studies are needed for proper budgeting. You have to take into consideration edges in the management team. The risk of interest and currency exchange is also one of the risks that they have to take into consideration when you are negotiating a loan. The company shall ensure capacity enhancement from the project implementation and proper tariff setting to nurture revenue growth and unit cost reduction. So today we see that technology is also very important for you to achieve this outcome. So that's why I gave the example of Grundfos M-Pesa integrated technology. Grundfos is specialized in pumps, in making pumps. M-Pesa is a mobile phone, mobile phone money, so mobile money instruments. So these companies, Grundfos and Safaricom, which is the owner of M-Pesa, came together and they developed this GMIT. As you can see on page 71, I'm showing to you how the GMIT works. You have a pump, and under the pump, you have something like an ATM machine, which is actually the place where they collect water. I didn't put that here, unfortunately. And you have on top of the reservoir, I mean the tank, you have solar panels. This helps them to get energy, and then the pump is able to pump water all the time. But for you to get that water, you need first of all to do what? To have an M-Pesa account from Safaricom, and then you get an account from Grundfos here, and then you are able now to fetch your water from that outlet. So this technology has helped a lot. And then I was suggesting in this paper that if linked to a Bungro irrigation technology that is being used in India and in West Africa, it is one of the technologies that I implemented when I was in the International Water Management Institute in Ghana. If you link all of that, so you have a new technology that will help you to supply water for domestic purpose and for irrigation. And now, what are the new business models that have been applied in Ghana? As I said, Dr. Akudugu has summarized them in 3. So we are now on page 73. We have, first of all, what is known here as rural poor credit for irrigators. So commercial banks have devised a type of credit for small irrigators for them to access loans. So this borrowing mechanism can also be found in microfinance institutions and informal sector credit organizations. My time is out, so let me just go quickly on this. And then another scheme is known as the input dealer commodity-led irrigation financing. So this is another way of financing small holder farms through irrigation scheme. The last one is the nucleus farmer tender and trader-led irrigation. The last one is very interesting because here you have the farmer and the trader, and the farmer can borrow, items from the trader, and then he can put in place an irrigation scheme for it to fund. So sometimes you don't need money for you to fund a project. You just need the assets for you to do it. So that's why these 3 different models have been summarized in steps, and the steps are given here. These steps are given here on page 75. The first one is sensitization, awareness creation of community members. The second one is mobilization of internal and external resources. The third one is financing individual irrigated agriculture and other activities. And the fourth one is financing common interest economic activities. And the last one is implementing social development activities. So when it comes to the lesson learned, we have seen that these models have helped farmer-based organization to achieve profitability. And this, we can also say that they can achieve a long-term financial sustainability by them having access to commodity that are being used in irrigation, and then getting funding from small other farms, and then improving the marketing management is also one of the key advantages of this model. So now here, there's a proposal here to link these models with the government institutions, whereby government institution will help these farmers and these farmer-based organizations to access information from universities and research institutions, to access the markets easily, and end consumers as well as financial institutions through some deals with the government and other institutions. Now let's come to the nucleus farmer and trader financing scheme. It is very helpful because you can go and get, as I said, some assets to the trader without necessarily going to a bank. So you can just deal with a trader on one by one, and then you get some funding. Bonjour. Je prends 3 questions ici. Pardon. Yeah, so it is very important for helping small order farmers to access funding. Now, the last one is the example I gave you from South Africa. Maybe is it projected? No. The last one is from South Africa. Let me just read what is written here. So this is a bond, a green bond case. South Africa's South Rivier Solar Project. The 2008 financial crisis resulted in stricter regulations disabling banks to fund infrastructure projects using traditional lending and debt requirements alone. So recent surveys suggest that infrastructure is being viewed as an asset on its own, and funds allocation to this investment class is expected to increase under the green bonds scheme. The South Rivier Solar Project bond is an innovative example of using fixed income capital markets to finance infrastructure projects. South Africa has a developing financial system with a growing base of institutional investors, with 3 trillion rands in assets under management, according to the Deloitte reports, the 2015 and 2022. The bond was issued in the local South African rand currency with a face value of 1 billion. Then it was designed to finance the construction of a 44 megawatt power plant, photovoltaic power plant actually, for solar energy in an economically impoverished part of the country, which qualified to be called a green bond. So the bond that was issued with a 15-year maturity and 11% carbon had an amortizing repayment structure similar to a mortgage, which made it an innovative future. So you see there is a mortgage here, and there is also an amortization here, which will help to ease payments over 15 years. So as mentioned earlier, the bullet structure of the typical project bond can be difficult to adapt to project finance and can create a refinancing risk. This structure effectively deals with this risk. Another novelty is that there were some incentives in financing this project through South Africa's REFIT program, which allowed the national electric utilities to purchase power from renewable sources at predetermined prices through the backing of South African Department of Energy. So you see here the intervention of the government, which intervenes here in this negotiation, from it to buy the product of the projects. So this is a guarantee for reimbursement, and it increases what we call the creditworthiness of the project. So it was also another novelty this has an advantage of raising the creditworthiness of the borrower and the quality of the bond issued. Hence, this bond was rated Baa2 by Moody's at issuance. Since then, it has opened up new financing avenues for infrastructure development by reducing the cost passed through the internal return rate, which is generally used by development banks and by commercial banks for them to fund infrastructure. They use the IRR, which is internal return rate, for such projects. So this project here was a green bond project. You don't go through that mechanism. So you had to get the intervention of the government, the energy department, and then we have the electricity facility that can help also to buy the energy produced by this power plant, solar power plant. So this is also another example of green bond being used in Africa, especially in South Africa. But I always say that the South African market is really different from the other African markets. We can't compare it to them. And then they have also a very strong stock exchange market, which help them to raise this fund. So that is the end of this chapter. I don't know if there are some hands raised for us to. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Prof. Colleagues, let's give Prof a round of applause for the informative two-day lectures. At this point in time, I'll invite questions, points for clarification. This is the floor, colleagues. I see there's a hand. Chiamba has a hand up. Please go ahead, Chiamba. Mr. Chiamba Kanivet, can you please proceed with your questions or comment?
I'm not hearing. He's muted.
He's muted. Let me see if I can unmute him.
Maybe I click in the wrong button. Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to hear about if teacher, professor has some source about Angolan, about the funding or deals are near Angolan Congo. Can share with us.
You are talking about what? Angolan?
Yes.
What is that?
I think he's asking if you have got any case studies from Angola. Since he's from Angola, something if you have got anything in your repositories that speaks to Angola. Is that correct, Chiamba?
I try to get in touch with scholars from Angola. It's always a challenge. I think the Portuguese thing is a challenge for me. I didn't get one, but I'll look for it. I'll look for a case from Angola. I will ask for my colleagues that I know. If they can give me, then I'll send to you. So send me your email, and you get my email from Reni, and then we can discuss later. Yeah, I can send you a case, but I will ask. It's always a challenge, the language challenge. They speak Portuguese, we speak French, and sometimes it's not easy for us to communicate.
Thank you so much, Prof. Luwesi, for committing to assist in that regard. Chiamba, please put your email address in the chat box. And yes, if there is anything that comes through from Prof, we'll also forward to you, and it can also be a case study that can be shared with the rest of the team. Any other comments, reactions, colleagues? This is your opportunity. Prof, I do not see any other hands, but I was just going to ask Ronelle if she would want to take a group photo. Ronelle, are you still on the line? Maybe you could take a group photo where we also have Prof Luwesi on the line. It might be good for our drop. We have got a newsletter called The Drop, and we always take pride in showcasing what is happening in this regard. May I kindly invite you all to switch on your cameras? This way we can have a group photograph. Ronel, Paulus, I can see his camera is on. Thank you. Mauricio, thank you. Jimmy. Thank you, Mariam. I can see colleagues. Prof needs to move to his next engagement. Can we quickly do this? Can we switch on our cameras for the group photo? I will also do the same. Ofense, your camera is still off. Mumbe, your camera is off. Chiamba, your camera is still off. Can you switch on the camera? Mauricio, you were there, now you're back. Okay, great.
Okay, I think Royal's camera is also still off. Okay, no.
Ronel, can you put on your camera and take the group photo, please? Royal, can you also
Why
do
the
the
mail
same?
I'm sorry, I was out. Yeah, I'm back.
In the absence of proper technology, I was hoping our our comms person will take the photograph using a computer, but I've not been successful with that one. Okay.
Can I go ahead? Because I see Royal's
Please
picture.
proceed with those cameras that are on. Prof needs to go to the next engagement.
Okay. Really, why you smile?
Let's smile, colleagues. Catherine, you're looking too sad. Is it the cold? Frida, please switch on your camera. We are just having a group photo. Royal, switch on your camera.
Mark.
Is it done? Ronel, you're muted.
Yes, it's done.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. We quite appreciate you, and we learned a lot. And please continue being available for the SGSP. We would really want to continue being in touch with your good office. We have got short courses that are coming on board. One is also looking at water financing.
No, les autres, officer, that's impossible.
So we are really looking forward to the second round of engaging with you on the professional short course that is looking at water financing. I'm not sure if it's going to be this year or next year, but we are targeting the private sector policymakers and our river basin organizations. So this is not goodbye. This is until next time. Thank you so much, Prof Luwesi. And if you have got any need to follow up with our students, please let us know. We will link you up with them. But thank you so much. I don't know, Tafila, if you'd want to say a word on behalf of the students, since you're the student representative.
Yeah.
Tafila? Would someone want to say a word or two to Prof on behalf of the students? I cannot see. Tafila is muted. Who's going to say a vote of thanks on behalf of the students? Catherine?
Okay.
Video on, madam.
My mic. Oh, yeah, Prof Luwesi. Thank you so much for dedicating time to share your knowledge with us. It has been a pleasure. Of course, we realize that water and sanitation financing is not our strong hold in the program, and we need to work hard to have it incorporated, since we are dealing with integrated water resources management. In that regard, we take your teaching as very encouraging for us, and going forward, we will look into these matters closely. So in the future, please don't feel sad or don't feel burdened if we come back and ask you to share more of your experience with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Prof. So this is goodbye from the team at NAST and all the stakeholders that participated for the last 2 days. Thank you so much. Goodbye, colleagues. Goodbye, Prof.
Bye.